celebrating 16 years of possibility. Pilot Flying J and Halloran Hilton Hill present Anything is Possible. Today's guest, Nicole Chandler.
Welcome to Anything is Possible. I'm Halloran Hilton Hill. This is Nicole Chandler. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
You know, prior to us, starting the cameras running today, we kind of go through our morning ritual here with the team, and we were talking about the things for which we're grateful. And you paused for a moment, and you looked up to the thinking place. You got to look up to, the thoughts are up there, right? You got to pull them down. And you said, I'm thankful for a good name.
Yes.
Let's just start there. Why'd you say that?
As I have been in this position for the last 3 years, I am very much aware of some different responsibilities that come with leadership. And I also recognize that I am standing on the backs of my parents and my grandparents and so many other community leaders that have invested in me. And so I just am mindful of that, and I recognize the importance of that and the legacy of my name. My mother and my grandmother and what they were for in the East Knoxville community, and I'm just mindful.
Did you always understand that?
I always knew it was important, but as I've gotten older, I really have come to understand. The Bible says that a good name is far above riches. And I'm beginning to understand that above all else, your name is important. It carries weight.
Let's talk about growing up here. You're from Knoxville.
I am from Knoxville.
Born and raised.
Born and raised.
What was it like growing up here?
I went to Park Lowry Elementary School, which is on Linden. I grew up on Parkview, then moved to, I've lived just about everywhere. College Hills, well, it's not called College Hills, Ridgebrook, and then Louise Avenue. Now my parents still live out further east, Knoxville. And so growing up in the school system, I'm a graduate of Austin East High School. Went to the YWCA, went to the YMCA after school programs in the summer. And so my parents always had us busy, everything we thought we wanted to do.
You did?
Baton, tap, kickball, everything, babysit, lemonade stands, just everything to keep us busy and occupied, and it mattered.
Why do you think they wanted you to be so active, and how many siblings do you have?
I had one sibling. She passed when I was 16.
Were you close?
And so, oh yeah, very, very. And so I think as we were, girls and...
How many years apart?
4 years apart. So she was 12, I was 16 when she passed. She died of suicide. And so just...
What'd that do?
Oh God. It was the most horrific thing I have ever experienced in my life and my family. And we'll not go anything as hard as that ever again. So to be able to overcome that and survive that, and not just survive, but our family is intact, my parents' marriage is intact, our minds are intact. That the death of a child is the number 2 reason for divorce. And so the fact that they were able to overcome that and our family remain intact, and now God is using that, is amazing. That's a miracle in itself.
So let me make sure I'm clear. You were 16, she was 12, yes. Or you were 12, she was 16?
No, she was 12, I was 16.
So do you and your family, do you guys talk about this? What happened? Were there signs? Did you ever feel any big sister guilt? Did you ever feel like, was I supposed to do more?
Well, it wasn't there weren't any signs, there wasn't a note. We, did a full investigation of her death, looking for those things, a sign, a change in behavior. There wasn't a change in behavior at school. Teachers didn't notice anything. Grades weren't slipping. Everything seemed to be status quo. At home, you know, everything was fine. And so there was no sign of, you know, something's going on, something's wrong. It was very, very left field, very unexpected.
How did she do it?
She hung herself.
Did you find her? Did your parents find her?
My dad and I, yeah. We found her hanging on the closet door. And so
you can't unsee that.
You cannot unsee that. You can't unsee that.
You're 16, you're in the prime of your teenage years. Mm-hmm. You're doing tap and you're very active, you're outgoing. That had to be heart-shattering.
Oh, it was. Absolutely. Absolutely it was. For our
What
whole
did
family.
you do?
Initially, I was in shock for a very long time. Just when my dad got her off the door and we called 911 and she was already turning purple, you know. There wasn't anything that they could do. And so seeing her lying there under that sheet, you know, it was unbelievable. It was like, is this happening? You know, what is this reality? And so getting through the services and, you know, all the things that come with that, I kind of was just on autopilot, just trying to manage my sanity. But at 16, that's difficult to do. It's difficult to do.
Well, why don't we take a break? When we come back, you know, in storytelling, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about story, studying storytelling, screenwriting. And one of the things that comes up over and over again is you have to understand a character's driving motivation. There's text and there's subtext. And typically something happens that causes a shift and it starts to direct purpose. Mm-hmm. I didn't know this story. But when I see you work around the Change Center, you have been so passionate about both social work and this new thing that is emerging, the Change Center. And I think for the first time today, I get it, but I want to just make sure I'm getting what I'm getting, yes. If that makes sense.
Yes.
This is Anything is Possible. We'll be back in a moment.
Possibility powered by Pilot Flying J, Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel. Coming up.
At the time, you couldn't have told me anything good would come from that. But it has been an absolute gift for me in terms of working with young people.
So I didn't know until today about your little sister's suicide. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that you and your father found her. Mm-hmm. It happened when she was 12, you were 16, there were no signs, there wasn't a note, she's gone, and you guys live in the aftermath mm-hmm. of that. Is that why you do what you do?
I understand that now. It's funny when you talk about a shift that directs purpose, and if I had to identify what that shift was, absolutely. At the time, you couldn't have told me anything good would come from that. But it has been an absolute gift for me in terms of working with young people.
Tell me why it's a gift.
Being able to sometimes see a pain that they can't articulate or identify a space that they're in that maybe nobody else understands or they haven't been able to share. It has allowed me to be able to tap into some of that, working with teens and specifically with teens, but working with young people to say, you know, I know this is bad right now. I know this feels like the end of the world, but you're gonna get past this moment. Like, you're gonna move past this thing that seems so overwhelming, because at 15, 16, 14, 12, 13, that moment seems so insurmountable that they can't fathom the other side of it.
If you had to give me a 30-second summation of your mom and your grandmother and your dad, could you do it?
Oh, 30 seconds.
What words would populate that?
Strength, faith, love, passion, hope, education, sacrifice, family, intentionality, determination, persistence, endurance.
I think you just described yourself. I think the DNA transferred neatly because you're working on your PhD now. And when I met you, this is a long time ago, you were just, as I remember, you're like, I'm pressing the restart button on my life and I'm going to do big things and I'm going to, do you remember that?
I do. Wow.
Talk to me about the moment of transition in your life. You have a beautiful daughter and you were like, look, I'm taking the reins of my life. Talk to me about when you woke up and said, I'm going for it all the way.
For me, it was absolutely, becoming a mom and having this being that I was now responsible for, rearing and raising and empowering. And my motivation was, what do I want to teach her? What am I teaching her by example that I'm not even aware of? Because there are things that you teach your children or whomever that you're leading that you're not even aware of by what you do or what you don't do.
How old is your daughter?
She's 14.
Ain't that something? So I guess you can teach those things, but then again, for it to really stick, you have to model those things. Did you feel a greater weight and a greater pressure? You got a daughter that's 2 years beyond what your little sister was.
Oh.
Did you feel this pressure to kind of make sure that you showed up in her life in a way where she felt hope and she felt the power and potential of her being?
Oh, absolutely. And probably to the point, so as she's gotten older and, we talk about Sparkle, that was my sister's name. And so, she sees pictures around the house and, we talk about her often. And so as she got older and she recognized that she was getting close to 12 and 13, we all had I think it was a unconscious, intentional effort to make sure we were like, and she was just like, hey,
that's
enough
I can't
love.
Breathe,
can you back it up? And so we had to be mindful of that we absolutely were responding to that subconsciously of, okay, we want to make sure we don't miss something, make sure we're seeing what we need to be seeing, and is there something we didn't see that we need to be attentive to? And so, but absolutely, we were kind of like, and she was just like, "Can you killing me? Can you back it up? I'm good."
It seems like though you want to extend that to young people, and the Change Center. It's been amazing the way the community has embraced the Change Center. What is the Change Center?
So the Change Center is this amazing facility that was created in essence from conversations with young people through Mayor O'Harold's Save Our Sons Summit. And so Save Our Sons is an initiative of Mayor O'Harold that seeks to increase opportunities of success for boys and young men of color between the ages of 14 and 24. And part of that was a Sons Summit in 2013 where she met with young people in that age group and met with youth serving leaders and community leaders. And one of the things that the young people shared was that when they get bored, they do dumb things. And that's true for all of us. And how we do that changes as we get older, as our resources change. But the fact that we do that, it doesn't change. That doesn't change. And so Mayor O'Harold asked, well, what is it that you would like to do? And they said roller skating. Right? And all the adults were like, roller skating? And so Mayor said, okay, well, you plan a party, the city will pay for it, partner with CAT to provide transportation and pickup points, and went to a skating rink in the city. 200-300 kids show up to this skating party, and the kids promoted it, they did the flyers, they did social media, they did all of that. And it was a great event. When it was over, they was asking Mayor, when can we do this again? And so since then, There have been several skate parties, and the same thing has happened every time. And so the kids continue to vet the need and desire to have this space. And Mayor said, well, can we put it closer in our community where they can get to it? And so Pastor Arnold, who is the pastor of Overcoming Believers Church, really felt called of the Lord one day, walking from his office to the sanctuary, which was at that time where the Change Center ring will be now. But as he was walking through, really felt like he heard the Lord say, if you give up this space on this side of the wall, you'll have to bury less kids on the other side of the wall. Mm-hmm. And so he was about to do a funeral for a young person, and he showed the space to Mayor, and she said, okay, let's see, can we put feet to this? And so we did a feasibility study, and then it began to evolve to be not only a recreation facility, but also to meet the other needs that the community began to share about, wanting kids to be able to have jobs and be able to have accessible, family-friendly, affordable entertainment. And so the Change Center answers those things. So it will be a recreation facility, a job training center for young people to work part-time in the Change Center, as well as connections to jobs in the community, and then an entrepreneurial development piece and family-friendly entertainment.
Wow. Let's take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about how changing other people's lives has changed you. This is Anything is Possible.
Coming up.
Life is short. And I know that's a cliche and people say it all the time, but until it's at your front door, you think it's just a cliche. And it's like, oh. But really, life is short, and so live on purpose.
The Change Center at its core is about possibility. It's about saying, you look at these young people and you realize that there is dynamic potential waiting to emerge. And part of our job as miners, get the dirt out of the way,
yes,
get the diamonds, right?
Get
the dirt out of the way, get the gold. And that's such a great thing to dedicate your life to. How has dedicating your life to changing other lives, because I know you were in social work, you got your master's, now you're working on a PhD in education. How has dedicating your life to changing other lives changed you, or how is it changing you? Yes,
you can't work for the Change Center and it not have an impact on you. It can't not change your life, and so. It's made me much more aware of my seat at the table for however long I'm here, to make sure I'm paving the way for those that will come behind me, and to be intentional about identifying those persons early so that they can participate in the process, so that when they get to the table, it's not like, oh, well, what do I do? What am I supposed to do? And so making me much more aware and conscious of my responsibility to bring along the next leader, the next executive director who will eventually take this role.
You know, as we wrap today, take us to school. I would love for you to teach me maybe 2 or 3 things that life and death have taught you about life and death. What has life taught you? What are the rules of the road? What are the values that you've gleaned from your parents and your grandparents, your forebears, your experiences? What has life and death taught you, so we can tell people this is the architecture of possibility?
That life is short. And I know that's a cliche and people say it all the time, but until it's at your front door, you think it's just a cliche. And it's like, oh. But really, life is short, and so live on purpose. You know, take the trip. You know, buy the dress. You know, take the mental health day. Take care of yourself, to love yourself and to love others. To forgive, and to mend relationships quickly.
That's the thing, isn't it? Mm-hmm. You know, in the Lord's Prayer it says, forgive us our debts or trespasses as we forgive. It's almost like God calls us to mimic the love that he loves us with. But it also lightens the journey, because there's nothing like the heaviness of carrying unforgiveness. It's a heavy stone to carry while you're trying to go forward in life. So that's a good word. Are you a pastor too?
I'm not a pastor, but I am a preacher. I'm not a pastor.
Are you not?
I'm not a pastor.
Okay, I just wanted to check. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Your life has been blessed with the grace, and what you're doing at the Change Center is really important work, because the most important work we do, Clayton Christensen, in his book, How Will You Measure Your Life, he says, really the great measure of life is how many people you helped get better. And he said the level up is if you can help people get better at getting better.
Servant leadership.
And
that's
what you do, and that's who you are. And by the way, just so you know, I can roll on some skates.
I'm waiting, because I remember the challenge with you and Pastor Arnold.
He can. There's no.
I can't wait.
Me, John Wright. I was going to say Chris Merritt. Just me and John Wright. Oh, okay. Wheels of steel.
Oh, I'm calling you to the floor. Please know it.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
We'll let this roll for now. We'll see you next time on Anything is Possible.